Hey, welcome to Witching Hour Tarot. It is a Monday, approximately 10 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States. It's been too long. I've been super busy. Haven't really had the energy to do a tarot reading. And I feel so guilty because I had mentioned my tarot mat previously in my last reading. You have a different perspective of it now. It's Gustav Klimt. He's actually one of my favorite modern artists, and this is Death. That's what the painting is called, and I absolutely love it. I feel like it's very suiting for tarot. He did have, it's like a golden woman. I think it's called the Golden Lady, and it was hanging in the Met for some time. He's one of my favorite modern artists. I get, I'm really bad with names, so like conceptually I understand, and like I've seen it before, but a bunch of German names or whatever. They usually all just like, excuse me, blend together. But I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying themselves thus far. We are in full-fledged spring. So, I hope everyone, I've been feeling a lot of conflict, a lot of tension around me. Maybe those are just like my own personal, issues going on. Oop, we got a lot going. There's our spirit is very eager to get a message out there to someone. My 2 subscribers that I have and whomever, comes across my page. I hope that is helpful in some kind of way. I don't really read tarot in the traditional kind of way, and I have different sort of interpretations. My goal is not to get you hooked to sell you money. My goal is not to get you hooked to make money. My goal is to be more so of a spiritual teacher, a spiritual leader. In one way or another, or just a guide, what have you. I don't even know if I would dub myself as a leader or a teacher, more so as a guide. If it resonates with you, it resonates with you. If it does not, then it does not. But I would like to think that I have some sort of understanding of the dynamics that go on in the physical, metaphysical. Maybe I don't. Who knows? Maybe I'm just crazy. I don't know. But nevertheless, I do this for myself as well. I find it very, relaxing, and I like to get this kind of energy out there, capture the spiritual realm. So what's going on in the collective? Ace of Wands. So this is all about action, all about communication. A lot of folks actually equate it to the phallic. So what that more or less means, if you don't know phallic, and is that that word is not in your vocabulary, it is like erect, the most erect thing you can imagine. So there's some sexual energy here as well. Someone may want to communicate in that kind of way. Wands are very passionate representation. They're fire energy, so Aries, Leo, Sag. So it's good to see the kind of that passion aspect of it. Like maybe someone likes to write, maybe someone likes to paint, maybe someone, they're kind of like a freedom fighter in some kind of way, where they have, they have a message. And that's the thing too, is like with people who have different ways or unprecedented ways of looking at things, they tend to be ostracized. So spirit, it's really important to have like, your internal intuition or your internal sort of like guide. And wands are kind of also the most spiritual of the suits, the most like intuitive of the suits. The Queen of Wands as well is like kind of like the like very sort of like a witchy kind of vibe, but I don't even want to say witch because it's like a seductress, and like Let's see what else comes up before I butcher my explanation. So King of Swords. So this is air energy, so Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. These are very intelligent, very logical. These are the doctors, lawyers, accountants of the world, able to sort of look at things like totally opposite of actually wand energy. Wands are very sort of like very expressive and very passionate and very like more impulsive, and then swords are more so like, let me kind of take my time, look at this, be objective, think about what to do. I love this depiction here. It's like sort of like a hippogriff, I think. So definitely like master of the sky, master of the stars, perhaps maybe like constellations, maybe like stargazing. It's really nice to see this imagery here in this deck. This deck actually is all about folklore all across the world. I don't know the specific story, but what resonates me is hippogriffs. Those, I think it was in Harry Potter or something like that. So maybe King of Swords. It's also about boundaries. Like prior to even starting this reading, I kind of wanted to talk about like boundaries and the degree of warmth that you have with people as they get more and less close to you. Like boundaries are so essential to your mental health, but also the health of people around you, because if you don't have any boundaries with, just like, for example, I had invited one of my friends somewhere to come with me, and we're having some tension in our relationship, and like I think we both felt the tension, and so I think that they were uncomfortable with coming, and I was also uncomfortable with them coming, and they had sent me a message and unsent it because I don't think they wanted to like hurt my feelings, and then I just like was like, okay, no, like this isn't a good vibe right now. So I had thought that person was closer to me than I even realized, and they're not. So I'm just using that as an example because degrees of warmth definitely change, like with, you have your inner circle, you have like your friends, like you have your inner circle, which is like your family, your partner, whomever. You have your friends, best friends, you have even like acquaintances and like, sort of friendly acquaintances, like people who you might not hang out with all the time, but see occasionally, maybe you're in the same social groups, whatever it is. And then you have strangers. And you can't just have the same degree of warmth for all these kinds of people. Like you have to have the correct social boundaries with people. That was just on my mind prior to doing this reading. And this is kind of what is resonating with me as I look at this energy, because King of Swords definitely can be very, very boundaried in a healthy way. We'll see how this how this unravels as we move forward. But when they're reversed, King of Swords can be incredibly ruthless, incredibly rude, incredibly unforgiving. Five of Wands. So this is like crabs in a bucket energy. So a lot of conflict, a lot of petty arguments, stepping on people's heads to get ahead, or, using people's shoulders to raise themselves up. Here with the King of Swords, like maybe someone was put into a position where they're like, you're just another crab in the bucket. You're just another crab in the bucket. You're nothing special. And then they're like, oh no, I am not. Hell no. I'm no crab in a bucket. I'm this beautiful, gorgeous hippogriff that's the master of the sky and the land. And watch me as I, assert myself in the most passionate, and it's just, so that's kind of the vibe here for now. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, I forgot my, the Fool. Yeah, so I love the Fool energy. This is actually Aries energy. I am an Aries, so I really resonate with the Fool. I like the High Priestess as well. I feel like those are the two cards that I resonate with the most. The Fool is all about like the ability to wonder. You know, it's that human sort of instinct to look up at the stars and like wonder what it's out there and like a whole new world. Like as you can see, the depiction of I think this is Little Mermaid or some version of a Little Mermaid. You know, like it's that kind of capacity. So like maybe someone has kind of been expected to be a crab in the bucket, and then they're just like, I'm just getting my stand right here. Yeah, I like my little stand. Like I'm gonna actually switch this around a little bit so it's more. And they're like, you know, there's more to life than like just being told what to do and being subject to my environment. And like, I don't want to just be subject to my environment and the people around me or the people who feel like they have higher status than me. Like, I want to have my own purpose. Like, I want to have my own sort of like, my own thing going on. And there's definitely that understanding going here. Someone's definitely at that point, that pivotal point where they're like standing up for themselves and making what they want out of their life. So let's see the general theme. Okay, so the World came out. I love the World. Probably one of my other favorite cards. The World is like, it's interesting because in the traditional tarot deck you have all the fixed signs in each corner. So those are the signs that it's full-fledged of the season. Like there's no edge of spring or summer, no edge of fall or winter. It's just full season of winter, fall, spring, summer. And so I believe it's Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio. And so there are fixed things in the universe, you know, there are cyclical things in the universe, and everything does come back around, and everything that's encompassed within the cycles of the world. So, you know, it's all just kind of a part of life as well. I'm trying to also change up my tarot readings because I feel like they tend to be sort of repetitive in how I interpret things. Someone. It's also like someone knows that they deserve better too. Like someone, you know, has stars in their eyes, just like in their everyday life, and they're being projected into this crab in a bucket sort of equation. They're like, oh no, hell no. So that's interesting to see. Let's see what else comes out. This is my Kabbalah tarot deck. I really like this deck, but I need to get a better understanding of the Kabbalah. It's really interesting just, you know, how people even interpret the Kabbalah, because in mystic Judaism, it's not really supposed to be like, I'm like forbidden from interpreting the Kabbalah, or like even saying I have an understanding of the interpretation of the Kabbalah. And like mystic Judaism, like it's only for rabbis and, you know, more or less the priests of Judaism. And so the Pope also could be relevant here. You know, my heart goes out to the Pope, who had just passed away. I think it was only just 10 days ago, Pope Francis. You know, I think that he was a very gentle soul from Argentina, and I have had a lot of respect for how he was trying to lead the Catholic world. So that's just relevant for the sake of, oh man, I forgot what I said. The Hermit. So we've been seeing a lot of Hermit energy. Someone could be like, so this is like licking your wounds behind closed doors. It's all about introspection. It's all about, you know, getting to understand yourself in the world a little bit more. You know, again, it's Virgo energy, and you know, on these cards there's also a Hebrew letter that's a representation. This is Yud, and it represents a point in the Kabbalah as well. Here with, I have to study this more. I don't have an accurate interpretation of the deeper meaning of this, but it's each of these circles on it kind of represents like the phases of life, you know, like uh, faith, like mourning, as in like, you know, or death, or understanding, contemplation, like, you know, that kind of thing, like more metaphysical. Here with the Ace of Wands, someone could be, you know, really reflecting and maybe writing in a journal. You know, you could be journaling every day. You could be just some sort of self-expression that helps you have a better understanding of yourself. It could be masculine as well with the King of Swords and the Hermit here. So let's see. All right, King of Swords. Nine of Swords, yeah, so the Nine of Swords is all about victimization energy. So here I'm going to read with the King of Swords and the Nine of Swords, I'm going to read this in the reverse. So someone's been quite ruthless here. Someone's not been fair. Someone might have been you know, very selfish, with the King of Swords in reverse, like me, myself, and I, and this isn't good for me. And in that process, you also sort of create more victims. So here with the Nine of Swords, like that's definitely the vibe. So someone's been, you know, victimizing, maybe in the process of victimizing themselves, they've been creating more victims. Like this is like in the reverse, this is like very, very ruthless. Like, I hope you fall off a cliff and die, kind of like ruthless, like, you know, or maybe even being aggressive about it. And like, for example, what this energy reminds me of is, I think it's in Game of Thrones. Is it in Game of Thrones? Or I think it's in that other, oh man, I forgot, Viking. It's like, I think it's called Vikings, and he's so handsome. I don't know the actor's name, but I think it's like, oh no, shucks. Anyway, there's a scene where he becomes king of, like he's an original like Scottish person, and then when the Vikings came to the UK during like, I don't know, 1000 AD, they took him in. He was like a child. He was like, you know, a 9-year-old, 8-year-old child, and they treated him as their own son, and he ends up growing up and being a Viking king, more or less, but with Scottish blood. And then what happens from there is that, you know, he's going on his conquesting. You know, there's lots of stuff going on in the UK at that time in terms of war and peace and all that fun stuff. Tolstoy could also be relevant, the Russian writer, as I mentioned, War and Peace. But there's this scene where he does have he's betrothed to this beautiful young woman who's also sort of very high priestess energy, very like spiritually gifted, and is like able to do magic. And I think there's a scene where she actually saves a baby, with like, you know, it was like river magic. She like goes to the mud in a river and she like digs this hole, and then she like circles, she like makes like a shell sort of symbol, like, you know, it's this huge like 6 foot in diameter hole, and digs a shell sort of circular symbol within that hole, and then puts the baby in the middle and is able to actually save the baby's life. And there's a scene within that movie, like after that part, when they're going to war, and one of the generals of the opposing side of whomever, you know, the Viking Scottish person was fighting against, goes into the camp and then beheads his betrothed, and then comes out with her head and shows it to the whole, you know, the whole army. Like, that's the kind of ruthless energy of King of Swords and Nine of Swords here. So someone who's been through so much pain, someone who's seen so much, someone who has been through a lot of really difficult sort of situations where their empathy has sort of just been like wiped out, like no empathy, like all nothing. There are no rules in war and love, or like whatever the expression is. I forgot what it is. War and love, or I forgot what it is exactly. But that's what this combination reminds me of. So someone could have been very, very extraordinarily ruthless. It's like, you know, someone thinks they can spit in your face and then walk away and you know, take a shit on your shoes. Like in modern time, like it's the same energy. Like that's another relevant point here, is that in modern time, we're really lucky that we don't, you know, in most areas in the world, you know, God forbid that these kinds of things, they still do go on. You know, this really ruthless sort of, like, to me, beheading is like one of the most disrespectful ways you could ever kill someone, and it destroys the soul in my eyes. It's so fucking disrespectful to me, and it really kind of makes me sick when I think about it. You know, it's just I hate it, and I think about corporal punishment and that kind of thing. And I just, like, it just really irks me that this is what we would do to people for, you know, hundreds of years, like thousands of years. Like, you know, corporal punishment was a thing until, like, you know, 1930s in the United States. And like in some areas of the world, it's still very much a thing. But my point here is that when with souls, if like you believe in, you know, reincarnation and that kind of thing, there's a lot of residual energy from these types of things that have happened in the past. Like, for example, the woman, you know, the priestess that got beheaded, and the gentleman who, or the, you know, the warrior who went into rage after he saw the general beheaded his betrothed, like that, it manifests into modern day time in one way or another. Maybe less, you know, corporal, like maybe less, like, you know, so you're not literally being beheaded, but it's like kind of like a symbol. Like this warrior made it felt like he should have protected her more. He should have, you know, brought her, you know, a few miles away, or like brought her somewhere else. Like he felt like he should have protected her more. And because he didn't protect her, he blames himself, and then she gets beheaded, and like, you know, it just, you know, gets out of hand from there. That energy it lingers for centuries. And if you do believe in, you know, reincarnation and that kind of thing, so in modern time, it could manifest in a lot of different ways. But my point is that these things that happen that are, like, you know, really disrespectful to the soul, it does manifest into modern time. The feelings are residual. So like in my experience, like when you have these really intense feelings, it's usually because there's some sort of karmic tie from a past lifetime. This also reminds me in this sort of like never mind, I'm going to keep going. All right, so let's see, 5 of Wands. Two of Wands. Yeah, so Two of Wands is all about discovery. So maybe someone's discovering this is not the kind of life that they want. That, you know, crabs in the bucket, like most people kind of live like crabs in a bucket too, like, oh, I gotta get ahead, I gotta make money, I gotta, you know, do my 9 to 5, I gotta, you know, buy a house, I have to do that, like live within the social narrative. And the Two of Wands is kind of like the discovery that there's more than that. The discovery, like, you don't just have to be a crab in the bucket. The Fool, Ace of Cups. Yeah, so there's something out here else for someone else, like hope, for sure. I'm just getting a little overwhelmed right now because I just feel it's the residual energy, the point that I picked up on, and just personally and like in my personal life, there's something that's happened that is there's a lot of residual energy. And in a past life, something like, you know, my soul could have been, you know, very much been the one that was beheaded. You know, I could have been the one who was put at a stake and burnt alive. You know, or a combination of all those, or, you know, I didn't want to say this earlier, but the hand of Fatima, the Hamsa, could be relevant. And the story behind the Hamsa is actually, it's this woman who found out her husband was having affairs behind her back, and she kind of just was like, you know, living at home while her husband was screwing around. And she went out of her mind and started to use her hand to stir the soup, and burnt her hand so bad because she just, like, you know, she just lost her mind. And with that, you know, Sylvia Plath might also be relevant, who's a poetess, in case you don't know, but you should know. Sylvia Plath is known for, you know, she also had some, you know, severe mental health issues. She stuck her head in the oven to kill herself. Like, that's how she committed suicide. She stuck her head in an oven. You know, I can't really imagine sticking my head in an oven and dying that way. But there's a residual there's something very residual going on here. Or even like on a bigger level, as we have this, you know, that you know, we're in a very contentious time with what's going on in the Middle East, and we, you know, I find personally, I'm not going to actually give my opinions on the Middle East, but that's a lot of residual, a lot of residual energy that's manifested, festered over, you know, hundreds of years, if not millennia. And to make it all worse, you also had the issue of, you know, the Holocaust and Nazi Germany and that kind of thing, and like those, you know, killing, killing 15 million, 20 million innocent people in, a mass genocide definitely has residual implications on the spiritual realm. And let's not, talk about, Stalin or the Armenian genocide or the Greek genocide or the genocide in Myanmar or the genocide, there's tons of residual energy like that lingers in this world, and you have to know how to navigate it correctly. But on a more positive note, because this just got really heavy super quickly, this is kind of all just like hermit energy. It's like, what kind of person do I really want to be? Do I want to be this loving, generous, full-spirited person? Like, do I want to be, emotive or do I want to also do I want to be afraid or crabs in a bucket or silent because that's the status quo, like not standing up for people, not standing up for myself, afraid to go against the grain. And there's a ruthless energy here as well, like ruthless in the worst kinds of ways, in the most torturous kinds of ways. And I'm getting a little uneasy just thinking about it. The Hierophant. Yeah, so again, shout out to the Pope, Pope Francis, a very special Pope in my opinion. May his soul rest in peace. He was very influential in the Catholic Church in what he did for, disadvantaged groups. But this again, so I love the Hierophant. This is like the religion and laws that govern the world. So it's the order as well. It's like, how we make sense of everything and the rules. It's the Bible, it's the Torah, it's the, it's the guidance that we have of what morality is and what morality is not. So someone here with the world and the Hierophant, these are my major themes that I put up here. They have everything sort of at their fingertips to also make new guidance to laws are always evolving as well. In some situations, like we live in a world where the internet kind of has manifested a lot of different things. There's a lot of things like money laundering and bullying and cyber stalking and infiltration of governments. There's this really great book called Russian. It's about Russia, like modern day Russia. And it's like anything could be possible and everything is true, or it's along those lines. And my point is that, oh shucks, I forgot my point. My point is that, social media and the media influence is also being used as a tool to influence people on a totally different level, to brainwash people on a totally different level. And it's kind of like its own sort of it's its own sort of foreign, what's the word? Like other governments can use social media to infiltrate another country. They can use it to either positively or negatively influence the world. And those are the laws that are starting to evolve at this time. We're starting to look at things like, Mark Zuckerberg going ahead of Congress. I remember seeing him walking into when he was being deposed by Congress, and he looked scared because he knew something was not right, and he had to stand in front of the United States government and explain what his understanding of what happened is going on. And just like how I think it's very, very important how we think about social media and just the internet and how the influence that it has on our minds, and not only that, the influence, how it can be used as a tool to influence other people. And this is kind of what this reminds me of. It's like, you know, it's very relevant to controlling the narrative or not controlling the narrative. You know, you have to find the morality of what's right and wrong. Like, can you cyber stalk someone and then, you know, send little notes to your friends about what they're saying on the internet, making fun of them behind their back, and it's all kind of going on behind closed doors, and no one but your group of friends knows, and it's not obvious to that person. Like, is that unjust? Is that unlawful? So I'm the kind of person personally, like, you know, like I speaking of inner circle, outer circle, I have a very well connected inner circle. I'm very close with all of my family, very secure with my family. And in terms of what goes on outside of that, I'm, you know, I don't really, like, I don't really, it's to my best enjoyment. Like, if I find someone to be toxic, if I find someone to, you know, we don't resonate with one another, I will not invite them into my life. So my point is that since I'm so secure in myself, and since I know I have people to support me, since I know I have people that have my back, since I know that if I ever had a problem, I can go to, you know, my mother, my father, my sister, my brothers, my aunt, my uncles, and say, listen, like, something's going on, I'm getting this really bad feeling, or even just to the point of standing up for myself and being like, no, this isn't right, like, no, this isn't okay. Like, I would much rather stand up for myself and, you know, question the status quo, not in like a sense where I'm like looking for problems, but for example, you know, there have been comments throughout my whole life, ever since I've been 14, about my body, you know, and what my body looks like, and, you know, the curvaceousness of my body, and the inappropriate comments about my body from, you know, onlookers or men or women or whomever, and standing up for myself to a degree, because also, like, gender law and discrimination law against women is not really something that's that evolved. Like, you know, it's really only existed for you know, 40, 50 years. And there are certain things that are said that should not be okay. And I'm the type of person where I much rather be ostracized than allow someone to disrespect me, and then set an example for what the rules should be and how people should treat a woman. And me, myself, I do consider myself a divine feminine woman for that reason. I will not tolerate being disrespected on the status of being a woman because of my body, because of what I look like, because of, you know, so I'm getting a little passionate because this is my personal experience. Like, you know, in like the Scarlet Letter is really relevant as well. Like, we had the Scarlet Letter, you know, I forgot who wrote that, but it was basically about, you know, someone being like slut shamed in, you know, the 1600s, and like being ostracized for it. And then she has, like, I think it's like an A on her, you know, prescribed on her whatever on her chest, embroidered on her clothing for adulteress. Like, that's a perfect example of like changing the status quo, doing something that's unprecedented, like not becoming just a crab in a bucket where everyone's trying to, get on your shoulders. Like, and then that book, The Scarlet Letter, made us kind of look at how we even think about women, or, it's a very significant sort of literature. And there's tons of literature like that as well. That's just like, that's why also I love literature, because it's timeless in so many ways, obviously. But then that's it's what remains to allow us, if you're educated enough and if you're interested in being educated, to question what's going on. Four Swords. So this is all about restoration. So definitely like someone journaling, resting, writing it all down. Maybe something like this that I've talked about. You've gone through some sort of ruthless situation, or situation where you're afraid to stand up for yourself because of the status quo, and write it down. Get it written down. And there is like there was an instance of something that was happening to me in a public spot, and I was livid when this was happening, and I called complaining, and I was like, I want it written down. And you have to make that point to people. Like I can be very soft, very feminine, but I do have that, even I have that ruthless energy when my boundaries are pushed. I want that written down. I want it reported. I want it, I want a record of it. Like that's very important, so in the sense that literature, like you need to write that shit down. Knight of Pentacles. But so the Knight of Pentacles is all about strategic sort of planning as well, and getting there's an offer, like someone steadily coming for an offer. This is complicated energy here. King of Swords reversed. I'm getting overwhelmed right now a little bit. There's a lot going on in the background. So with this, the Knight of Pentacles here, I'm getting a vibe of maybe there's someone who's more powerful who is ruthless, but then there's someone who is an observer. This is Earth energy. So, and it's a vastly different sort of, these are opposite sides of the spectrum. Someone who operates in a totally different way, but also a lieutenant of a general, not as experienced, not as powerful. But there's sort of justice too. In a message. Yeah. This is, yeah, Page of Wands, Two of Wands, Five of Wands. A messenger. The status quo is changing. Death, yeah. There's a transformation for sure. And a whole new world, finding something more, like not being a crab in a bucket, like, you know, discovering more, like getting rid of this ruthless energy. Like maybe we are in a shift where we can be in more of a utopian society, and we're not gonna, you know, like subject our other people to corporal punishment because that's the only way. It's not the only way. You know, there's billions of ways to solve a problem, not just one way. You know, maybe billions is an over exaggeration, but the point is that even with, you know, there's 6 billion people or 8 billion people on this planet, and each one has their own way of thinking, each one has their own way of interpreting the world, each one has their own way of solving problems. You know, even if it's just a little different, it's still different. Ten of Wands, yeah. Yeah. So it's really hard also, like there's a lot of so it's very difficult to also change the status quo. Like this card reminds me of Sisyphus. It's like we all pushed the rock up, you know, or the boulder up a mountain, and everyone has their struggles and lives, and you know, changing the status quo, making a difference, you know, influencing people in a different kind of way is very, very difficult, and people are often ostracized for it. Yeah, this is a very complicated reading. Anyway, love, light, and blessings to everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your night.